Welcome, everyone. Right. First of all, I want to say thank you to all of you that are here. And we've got some new folks here. So if we could maybe go through each one of you, if you guys could, oops, lost you. There we go. If you guys could go through and just give a brief, give your name and, if you're a staff member, if you're a parent and community member, a little bit, just a couple sentences about yourself. So if you could do that. Judy, you're on my first screen, so would you go?
My name is Judy Smith. My husband and I own a sign studio in town. I used to be an educator many years ago. When I started on the DAAC committee, I had a grandchild in the school system. He has actually had two. They have graduated. And I coordinate a little program called the Junior Election for students both of the school district and of the age group that are not in the school district.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Okay, Blake, you're up.
Thank you, Bev. Hi. So my name is Blake Nicholson. I'm a parent of a high schooler, freshman this year. And this is the 6th year that I've been on the DAAC committee. So nice to be back and good to see you, everybody. Thank you.
See you. All right. Oops, I lost someone here. Okay, let's have you. What does it mean if it says pin? I don't know what that means. Anybody know?
That means
I think you'd like spotlight the person so they'd be somebody that everyone would see.
Okay, go ahead, Sarah. It says pin on you, whatever I'm pinning.
Okay. My name is Sarah Bertucci. I'm a parent of a 5th grader and an 8th grader in the district. And I am an educator. I work at Eagle Rock, which is a school and professional development center.
All right. Sheldon, it's you. You're pinned now.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. I appreciate everybody coming and spending time with us. I'm Sheldon Rosenkrantz. I'm the superintendent, and this is my 8th year on DAAC. So thank you.
Wow. Okay, Laura, you're on.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. My name is Laura Case, and I'm currently the school board president. I've been on for 8 years, and I term out very, very soon. And I've got a 5th grader and an 8th grader. And thank you, Bev. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Okay, and I'm not sure, I'm pinning some names, so I don't know who you are. Can you guys see that? Okay, if you see the pictures of everybody, it's, oh man, they're they're changing. Okay, well, we'll go to Glenn. I can see him. I know who he is. Go ahead, Glenn.
Right. Hi, I'm Glenn Case. I'm a teacher at the middle school and the high school, and I have a 5th grader and 8th grader in the district as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and I'm pinning. Okay, John, I know your name, so go ahead. You can go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is John Guffey. I'm on this is my first time.
You're kind of breaking up, John. We'll catch you again. You're kind of breaking up. Okay, Emily, that's the person I didn't know. Go ahead, Emily.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Emily Lizotte. I'm a parent of a kindergartner here in our district. I'm actually a graduate of Estes Park High School many moons ago. And I worked at a community college previously in my past, so I'm just interested in becoming involved in my child and other children's education. Thanks for having me here today.
Thank you for doing this. All right. Alice, let's go for you.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear
Okay.
you.
All right. My name is Alice Miller. I have a second grader in the school district. I've lived in Estes Park for about 11 and a half years, and I don't have a background in education. I'm highly educated myself, and I'm interested in supporting the district as a community member and helping my child and other children in Estes Park.
Welcome, thank you. Can you hear me, Joe?
Yes, can you hear me?
Can hear you now.
Okay, so I don't know what's going on my end, something weird. My name's Joe Fry. We had a daughter that graduated 2 years ago that came through the district K through 12. And I teach at the middle school and my wife teaches at the high school.
Thank you. Okay, did I miss anybody? I'm not sure. They were kind of John Guffey, let's try you again because your connection came off weird. Can't hear. Okay. Not good. Okay. John Guffey is a community member. He's also a director at the Estes Park Education Foundation with me. So we're not getting a good communication with him. Did I miss anybody? I think I got everybody. Okay. And for those of you that are new, oh, Glenn, we didn't get you.
Yeah, you got me.
Did I get you? Okay. Okay. Not sure. Okay. And my name is Bev Bachman, and I am chair of the of DAAC, but I'm also president of the Estes Park Education Foundation. I've got over 40 years in public education and have done consulting as well. So have a deep love of education. Okay. One of the things, oops, let me go to share screen. Okay. So one of the things is that we need to take a look at is our mission and vision at, with DAAC. And it shows up on each one of this running summary of our agendas. And I keep notes on this as well as we've got minutes. And so basically our mission is that stakeholders in the district advise and hold Estes Park School District accountable in terms of their mission, vision, and goals. And our vision, so that's our purpose. And we've got state parameters that we need to follow as well as district parameters. And if we accomplish this, if we are good at this and actually do this, then our vision is that our diverse community works with the district to assure that our students graduate with the knowledge, skills, and experiences needed to be successful and responsible citizens. So the perfect situation is all of our students would graduate that way. As far as, we have a few people from last time that, well, first of all, any questions on our mission and vision? Anybody have any questions on that? Okay, I'm one that believes pretty strongly in this is what drives what we do. So that's something that we need to always be mindful of. Our minutes from last time, and there aren't many of you that were here at the time. Let's see if I can get that. And so those of you that were, are there any corrections that we need to make on this? Anybody have any?
I didn't see any, Bev.
Okay. Okay, then if there's a movement to accept these minutes, is there a movement for that? Motion, sorry. Someone motion to accept the minutes? Someone who was here? Nobody. Okay, I guess we don't.
I don't think I can or I would, but someone
I
else
know you can't. Unfortunately, there weren't too many people at that meeting. John, who wasn't, and Lauren's not here anymore. Joe, you're the only one. Can you move us? Okay, I guess we're not going to move to have the minutes approved. not enough people here that could do that. Okay,
That's all right. I mean, you're supposed to be a new group each year, so I guess the last minute.
yes, we're okay that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. As I'm chair right at the moment, and I would recommend that we usually would be electing a new chair right now, but considering there were so few people last year, I'm suggesting that we maybe postpone that, or if you guys are okay, I can be chair this year too. What are your thoughts? Any thoughts on that?
I'm fine with you if you're willing.
I'll do it again. Okay. Anybody have any objections? Okay, can we take a vote on that? How many are in favor that I stay on for a year? Let's put it that way. Okay, yeah, just show your hands. Okay, it looks like the majority. Okay, I'll do that. Is there someone who could be a recorder for this, take notes at this time? It is being recorded, but it really helps me if someone can do that. So, okay, we'll let that go for this day.
Happy to take notes.
Sarah? Okay, thank you. Okay,
I just don't know if I have access to the document, so.
okay. Okay, Sheldon, go over the charges. Each year, the Board of Education gives us specific charges that we are responsible for doing for the year. And so that's what we need to take a look at. They're the same as last year. But Sheldon, why don't you go ahead? We can't hear you. Are you talking?
Sorry, I forgot to unmute, and I moved to the top of the screen after you put it share. So, sorry, I couldn't find it. Yeah, can you guys see the DAAC charge okay? I shared it.
Yes.
Okay. Well, let me give you a little bit of background. We've been doing DAAC for a while, and some of you have been very consistent, Judy, and a couple others. But we found out that over the years that we'd kind of lost the spirit of it. And we had a lot more teachers on it than we did parents. And the idea was to get parents and community members on it. So we have about 13 or 14 people that are actually signed up to be on this and have done applications to go on it. So we're hoping to build a real robust feedback group and work with that. So we kind of stepped back and took our time and really promoted it a lot more and pushed it out from the board, because one of the board goals this year is to really have strong community feedback, two-way communication, and so on. So I think we've done a good job getting a good group, and hopefully we can find a time. And we thought, of course, originally that we'd be in person. It always gives a little more challenge of doing stuff in Zoom, but we appreciate your work. If you look at the DAAC purpose, as far as by the school, by the district, is to measure the adequacy and efficacy of the educational program. So how are we doing? To make recommendations to the board relatively to accountability. So you guys will actually in the spring say, we recommend these things, or of what we think are the priorities and what's important. You also look at where expenditures are and where priorities should be. So we give budget reports throughout the year, and we give our next year's budget to you. And then so we hopefully line up with the priorities and the budgets going towards the priorities that we have. And so that's the recommendation from the board, and to make sure that we're doing the other things of SEL and safety and those sort of things as well. Plus that, beyond that, each year the district Board of Education gives a charge for what they would like beyond the basic setting priorities and are suggesting, you don't get to actually set them, suggesting priorities to the board and suggesting budget recommendations on those priorities. They also ask you to look at some other things throughout the year, ask us to present to you to give feedback on. So review academic progress and growth throughout the district. Strengthen school, family, community engagement to provide meaningful and continuous professional learning experiences. So that's why one of the reasons why we kind of repurposed or redid DAAC and trying to make it a lot more inclusive. Ensure education excellence for every student through curriculum that meets our ends, which our ends includes academic and social emotional and all those sort of things, as well as supports our global outcomes. And continue review of our unified improvement plans and our school improvement plans. And so that is what the board has asked us to focus on and ask you, actually. I'm just a participant. This is a community organization, and you guys do get to ask and set the budget or set the agenda to a certain extent and give information on that to meet your needs for these charges. Is there any questions on DAAC's purpose or DAAC's charges?
Can I say something, Sheldon?
Sure.
I think it's important that we as the DAAC committee stay apprised of the creative programs the school is doing, which will help with number 2, in that we can communicate with the community.
Yeah, that's another thing too, is we like to, of course, inform you what we're doing, get feedback on what we're doing. And of course, you guys also bring up any concerns or support of any of those programs. So yeah, it is for information. It is a way to have a group that are highly informed and committed people that we're sharing ideas with. So thank you, Judy, for that.
It's just that we do so many fantastic things up there that nobody knows about.
Yeah. So thank you for that. Anyone else have any questions or concerns or maybe things that you'd like to think about?
I'm excited and curious about number 2. So strengthen school, family, and community engagement. How is that expected to lead to professional learning with teachers?
I think it's not just professional learning for teachers, it's professional learning for all of us. So we're getting feedback for what's important. And so therefore we can provide, what's important from our community and present that for as district, our learning. It's not just professional development for teachers, it's learning as a district of what we need to do to meet the needs of our families. So it's a little further than that. But again, it's about, like say, Judy sending out what we're doing, getting feedback on that, and then adjusting where the gaps are or what we want to change or improve or focus areas and that kind of stuff. For that would be the professional learning experiences of what we need to do. So if there's something that an SEL program that our community is really excited about, we do the professional learning to do the pluses and minuses to that and find out, or a topic that goes along with that. So.
Any other questions?
I think what the way that's written, professional kind of doesn't sound right. It's really about interacting both. We're learning from you, you're learning from us is really the point of it, honestly.
Okay. Anything else? Anyone has a question on? Because we do need to adopt these. Sheldon, is there anything more that you want to say on this?
No, not if there isn't any questions. I hope that we're able to give you the information that you need. This isn't the only thing that you can ask for. This is what the board's asking you to review along with the priorities and the budget. So.
Right, and you'll notice on the agenda that we try to code it so that you can see which one of these major purposes, the 1, 2, 3, or 4, that are being addressed with each issue that's on the agenda. So that gives you an idea of how that works too. Okay, if there's no other discussion, is there a motion to, and we do need to vote on this one, folks. So is there a motion to accept these charges from the Board of Education?
I move that we accept the charges for 2021-2022 from the Board of Education.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Second, okay. All in favor, would you just put your hand up?
Aye.
Okay. Let me just check down here. Okay, it looks like we're good. Okay, thank you. Now, how do I get back to my screen?
I'll hit stop share and you can have it.
Okay. Here we go. Okay, let me go. I think it's you again. Yep, it is. Okay. On the Unified Improvement Plan for the district and an update on that one, Sheldon.
Back to share. Okay. So our S Park District Universal Improvement Plan, Unified Improvement Plan, has been good, kind of going on for a while. We made small adjustments, but as you know, with the pandemic and trying to go through there's a lot of the goals and the targets have pretty well stayed the same. For a couple of years. We also have not had state SPFs to go by because they froze those in the spring of 2020. And we have not had the data really to be able to upgrade those, and they do not have SPF, which is our district performance plan. So we have froze what we were in the spring, actually this fall of 2019, because we did not take tests in the spring of 2020. So a lot of that information has stayed the same, although our strategies have changed quite a bit as we went through it, but our major goals have pretty well stayed the same. So the way we come up with this is we all want to make the idea of being unified is to share focus, be collectively committed, and share responsibility. And we try to look at what trends we had going on in our school, the pluses and minuses, and then make some decisions from that. And this was from a variety of sources that we took into account, including state testing, local testing, surveys, perceptions, all those different things are involved in this deciding on trend analysis. So a lot of this stuff is a couple years old because we've had 2 years of sort of mixed types of testing and not having it for 2020, and last year only having it partial and not all students taking it. And then of course being in remote learning and out of remote learning and all those different things. But we do have some things that we have noticed that things are going up. We have increased some things in language arts. We also have not had the growth that we wanted. And so this has already been gone over quite a bit. I could go through with this deeper. What we're really going to do, what's important here, is we do have data that we are collecting right now, especially in the elementary. We are actually worked on it today with the State Department. We are asking to be reconsidered to get us off. As you know, we're on priority improvement. And we have data that we're out of 160 schools in the state, we are 7 that they are considering to look at because we can show improvement to possibly take us off priority improvement because of the data that we have. We submitted that today. They were very receptive. That would include providing more data from local sources, as well as the state testing that they were able to do. And also they'd probably come in and do a 2 or 3 day site visit and look at what we're doing and the improvements that we've made and so on. So we're in that process and we're very hopeful. That is the real data. This other data we have here is sort of old, and they just barely gave us a tool to do that like last week. And so I didn't want to share that today with you because it's not complete and we're not knowing where we're going, but that's going to be very, very, very important as we move forward. as we've already shared this data with you last spring, what I'm showing you here, because we basically have the same unified improvement plan for the district as we did in the spring, but they changed the dates on us and we're adjusting them now as we go because the testing came in so differently. But you can see that we have some positive trends, some medium trends, okay, and then of course some lower areas. But we will update all this of what our current stuff is at our next meeting, and starting with the elementary. And really what I want to do is delve into this instead of having all the different schools all at the same time. I want to get to the actual points where we are now and what we're working on. But it is important that from looking at these different things, as we looked at what's the root causes, what's going to make us better. And so we noticed some root causes here. As one is our gifted talented program is not very divergent. We noticed that many of our students of color and student of poverty was not in that. So we have made different testing, different ways to qualify in the last few years, and trying to help improve that process, improve our gifted and talented program overall. We'll have a presentation on our gifted and talented program. We went through a whole gifted and talented program review this summer. It went very well. It gave us some good things to work on, good things to identify, and showed us where our strengths were as well. So we'll have that presentation to go through there. Our global outcomes, we had great hopes 2 years ago to have a bunch of interaction committees with our community and really define and to better drill down what they would look like, how you evaluate those. We have some good continuums we're starting, but with COVID, we were not able to get out and interact as we'd like to. We also, of course, was maybe not able to spend the time that we wanted to develop some of those with just trying to stay in school and keeping on it. But this is a high priority for us this year. Each one of our schools and our coaches and our PLCs are looking at better ways to identify, to teach intentionally, not just randomly, and to evaluate our global outcomes. Instructional coaching, we want to get better at everything we can. We want to use our PLCs to have collective efficacy and have rigor in our instruction, and make sure that we are doing reflective practice and improving all the time in a continual improvement plan, as well as provide the professional development to provide professional development where the teachers are at and what they need at the time, instead of kind of overall arching professional development. Overall arching development, of course, will be within themes, cultural divergent teaching, global outcomes, all those things, but each one is kind of in their different journey on where we are with those. Cultural linguistic diverse education is a big goal of ours. Our trend data was very clear that our gap groups are not doing like we want them to do. Our students of poverty, students of color. And so we definitely wanted to put in strategies and support and priority on providing not only having our teachers learn more, better to meet all students' needs, but also provide other services as well. And that includes our ELL education as well. We had shown some good gains on that, but we was not getting to the where we wanted to be or where we needed to be. And our trend data showed that was an improvement that we needed to make. I'm happy to say in that category this year, we have added 2 new ELD instructors. So we have 2 in the elementary, 1 in the middle school, and 1 in the high school. And so we only had 2 before, now we have 4. And we're really working on intensifying and supporting and getting a good curriculum to increase our help for our students that are working with second language. We also have really identified that we needed to have student plans, READ plans, ELD plans, gifted and talented plans, and we put a structure in place to monitor all those as well. And our schools are looking at them in their PLCs on a regular basis. We moved it out of its own kind of system over here, to our teachers are involved and working on that at where we need to do in the classroom every day versus kind of a separate situation. I feel really good about that, and we'll update you on those as well as we move through those, because we will have presentations on ELD, we'll have presentations on gifted and talented, and our special populations. We also, of course, wanted to have feedback and assessment. This is where we worked on the grading for equity and provide good grading practices and fair grading practices across the curriculum. It didn't come of, we looked for grading for equity, we looked at giving good feedback and assessment and doing what we needed to do for our students. And we came up with using good grading practices and using a variety of books from O'Connor to Glusky to Grading for Equity, all these groups together to make sure that we are scoring our kids what they're able to do and know, other than maybe their behavior or something else. And also just making sure that we're giving people many ways to show what their knowledge in their education. We also noticed a few years ago that attendance was an issue. Attendance, we were really working hard on it, and we'd shown some great improvement in 2019 and 2020. Of course, with pandemic and quarantines and making sure students are staying home with any hint of any symptom for the safety of everyone, attendance has been a little more difficult. But we are getting back into, attendance that is realistic, making sure that kids that can be here are here, that they're here engaged, and working on that. Even though it's challenging, it's still sort of the same issue. Attendance in the past during remote learning was we made many home visits. I made sure kids were getting back engaged because it was very difficult. And we worked with our cultural liaisons. We added cultural liaisons as well as our principals went out to homes and found out why kids maybe wasn't getting it on Zoom and why they wasn't engaged. And then making sure when we started school, they came back and that they came back this year. And if you looked at the national trend and the state trend of losing kids, we didn't really lose kids in Estes. Some left the valley because of jobs or whatever, but our kids were here, just didn't disappear. We were able to get them back and engage at a certain level, and now we're looking at trying to engage them further. Our district count isn't official yet, but we're up from last year, and we're very happy about that. So that's important to us. Family partnerships. Again, we wanted to make sure that we are getting out into the families and making sure that their needs are met, whether they have internet at home. We implemented systems for that. Made sure with our chronically absent kids, what is the problem, using restorative meetings, having contracts, accountability. We're going back into this mode again because we need to make sure that our kids have the ability to come to school feeling safe and ready to learn, as well as having that two-way communication with the parents to make that happen. And then also, of course, we continue to work towards being a restorative practice school. We have identified this as a major thing in our system, that we're not punishing kids. We're trying to help them grow and be better and make up for if they do have a problem, that they are able to have conversations about it and move forward instead of punishment, forget it and move on. So very excited about some of the work we've done there, and a lot of schools look for us for leadership in that group, and always something to work on, especially when you get into the higher levels of level 2s and 3s. It becomes a little more difficult in the practice, but I'm very proud of the work that we've done there. Social emotional learning curriculum. We use the CASEL standards, and we use the CASEL standards to build our own system, and then are working those into global outcomes. Still some work to do there because we've had some turnover, unfortunately, in some of our social emotional counselors and leadership, but we have a good plan to continue that work at all levels to meeting the mental needs of our students. So our challenges, of course, is our achievement and growth gap for culturally and linguistically diverse students, school attendance and perceptions of school. Not only if they're here, are they really here? Are they enjoying school? Are they able to learn, have the support to learn, have a caring adult? All those sort of things are very important to us. Academic rigor, global outcomes, performance assessments, student feedback. We're trying to work on this at elementary and middle school. I've worked on student-led conferences. We have increased our curriculum and our curriculum training in the elementary and middle school math, as well as the elementary literacy program, and also the intervention programs that we've adopted, as well as increased class loads in the high schools, some of the AP classes and so on. And then working on, of course, the student perception, social emotional learning. We've really tried to get more student voice in everything we do, from day-to-day classroom work. I'm working on starting a superintendent's council, a school council, and then representative to the boards. We really want to make sure that our students feel heard and we're meeting their needs. I will say that probably one of the biggest challenges we have right now, coming back from the pandemic and for a lot of reasons, again, another national, state, as well as Estes Park trend, is the social emotional health of our students. We have an increasing increase of students really struggling, really need extra services and so on. And we're trying to make sure that we are providing the space and the support for that, including adding a social worker to our school, and really providing advisory for the high school to give, as well as middle school, to help those kids get more and more support. And then continue working, as I mentioned before, with our gifted divergence, as well as our whole gifted program in general. We needed a whole remodel with that, with the new state rules, and we again did a whole evaluation, and the state came in for 2 or 3 days and worked with us, and had a lot of compliments of the great work that we've done, but also have some areas for improvement, which we will share with you in the future. Sorry, any questions? I should have asked this a long time ago. So far.
Sheldon, one of the things that is that came out kind of in the focus group for the equity grading is that being used, if you know, if it is, at like colleges and universities? I know my granddaughters are very used to rubrics. I don't know if they, how much more than that they're doing. Do you have any knowledge of that? What's happening at the higher level of education?
I don't have any like research or anything. I know, there is a trend right now, of course, not to take SAT scores and ACT scores and some of those things. I know that my daughter did a lot more projects with feedback than she would than what I did when I was in school, but that's personal thing that I can't say, and some classes not. Some were as traditional, especially the first couple of years, were as traditional as could be. But as she got into her biomedical engineering classes and her chemical engineering classes, they were taught a lot more with giving feedback and projects and moving on, showing actually what they know, which makes sense, right? I mean, that's the way the world is, sort of, is you work on stuff and you improve it and move on. My daughter, who's an engineer, that's all she does is similar to what we do with that. Is you do a project, you get feedback on it, you do trials, you've come back, get more feedback on it, improve, and all those sort of things. So yes and no. I think that there is still, of course, a lot of traditional grading in college, but I also think as you move up even when I was in school, when I got to the master's level, it was more like grading for equity as you did your master's thesis and so on. Is you do drafts, you get feedback on it, you work on it, and develop something that's really valuable. And so I think both of those are probably true.
Yeah, I think like my granddaughters are in New York, and then I have friends that are in Illinois, a friend that's at CSU, and I'm hearing rubrics and this type and very similar to this in their reporting. So I was just curious if you knew on that. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, the 2 first years of my daughter's math classes were as traditional as you could get. But that's.
I'm sure it's a combination. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question on that. Do we know of other districts who have fully implemented something such as grading for equity? And then do we know those outcomes of students in higher education? So are they able to succeed in that next step?
When we've done all the research at Bertucci and all those, there's many models out there that have done this. I know that there's, I think there's some freedom in Poudre, but I think all the middle schools in Poudre do this now. They don't call it grading for equity, but they use the same thing, not using zeros, only using summative assessments for grading, all those sort of things is pretty common. There's a lot of different things with that. And, they have high test scores in her particular school. And I think that, there is definitely research out there. But that might be something, again, that this committee I could look at and bring back to you and give you some examples of those. I know there's some very, very strong models out there and has shown some good results of it. But I can't think of them right now, but I reading the literature, they have many of them, but I don't know the names of them. So we could look at some in Colorado and give that feedback, and that would be interesting.
Thank you.
Can I add, I come from St. Vrain. St. Vrain has taken a good look at grading for equity as well, and different schools have adopted that in different models as well. So I just thought I would add that St. Vrain down the road, and they've looked at that across their middle schools and high schools as well. I also have multiple children in college, and I would agree with Sheldon. Most entry-level courses, especially in science and math, pretty much you take a test, that's what you're graded on, period, end of story. But as you move up in science, math, and engineering, that's where the projects come into play, et cetera. And the humanities are far more along the line of projects and rubrics.
Thank you.
I will try to look at some good examples of that and ask around in Colorado and try to give you some feedback on that and see how that is. I know that, and I know some other states have some pretty good models of it, but I'd like to see how Colorado's doing in that. So that would be interesting for me.
I'll reach out to friends. I have friends in academia in Illinois, Arkansas, and at CSU, and I'll see what they have to say as well.
And Sarah has her hand up, and I know Sarah has a lot of good examples.
I just want to say that it goes by different names: standards-based grading, competency-based grading, proficiency-based diploma. It's a trend across the country, and basically is a better way of grading, both because it gives accurate information about where students really are, and because it allows people, it doesn't just privilege the people who can do it fast, it's where you get to at the end. And so the link that I put in the chat, it comes from the New England Secondary Schools Consortium, but they basically reached out to colleges and said, how would you look at a proficiency-based transcript? And you can see the list, but they all said students would not be disadvantaged by this. And Estes isn't changing their transcript yet, but basically by that philosophy. Amherst College, Harvard University, Yale University, Brown University. And so it doesn't disadvantage students. In some places, it's actually a huge advantage to them.
And one of the, when I used it, and I've been out of the classroom for a while, but I was using it with my gifted, talented kids and it was something I created. We didn't have some of the resources you guys have today, but it was something I had created where homework was risk-free. They could correct tests. They learned, and what I found with the gifted kids was that they, oftentimes they're so, they can't let anyone know that they make mistakes, and mistakes are very costly to them on a traditional grading system. And so they do a lot of things to avoid letting people know they make mistakes. And so when they learned how to make what I called mistakes, and I discovered early in my teaching that sixth graders are very literal and will correct you on mistakes. But anyway, they learned how to make the mistakes. They were comfortable saying, I don't know. They worked together to solve problems. They were much more focused on learning, and feedback I've gotten from those students as they moved on, they're out at college now, has been that particular thing of knowing how to fail. If they fail, they know how to recover, and they are much more apt to take risks and know they can recover from them. That's just, from the students I had.
I see that with my second grader. I mean, I think learning how to fail is incredibly important. And I think being too focused on academic success, like in my own personal career, getting dependent on getting A's or getting, well done, sets you up for that being, when you fail, you think you've really failed rather than it's part of the learning process. Mm-hmm. So I feel really supportive in teaching that method early. I do think providing good data and these type of discussions to the community is important, so people don't think it's a soft option. So I think presenting the academic research and saying, no, this is a really valid way of teaching is important.
Yeah, and we do plan on this. This is everything, and we do, like I say, hopefully have presentations on all these separately as well, and just so we can focus on that and get into the deep conversations, because that's really what we want, and that's where we want the feedback. I'm doing the 50,000 foot or 70,000 foot overview right now. So, but I appreciate that. I know what to focus on now, and we will definitely get you that information.
Well, one of the things too, Sheldon, that I've heard too, that you mentioned, that, kids say there's, some kids that say, well, don't worry, I can just take the test over again. But what they don't realize is to take the test, they don't take the test over again without getting some tutoring and without the teacher feeling that they can they're ready to take the test over again.
Yeah,
so
the idea is to relearn and know it, not to keep doing it and not knowing it. So and it takes a little bit of work. And I mean, there's a learning curve and all those different things. But we didn't call it grading for equity. We just changed our grading program to almost similar to this in the last school I was in Washington, and we saw good results all across the board, and our kids did very well in college, and definitely showed improvement of all groups. So and we weren't there yet either. I mean, we were just touching the surface of it, but definitely saw some great gains in student learning. I think someone else was trying to get something to Blake.
Yeah, hey, Sheldon, it's Blake. I've got a couple of questions for you if we have a moment.
Sure.
What is, if you can share with me, what is the specific data that we are asking the state to reconsider priority improvement status?
They wouldn't really give us today. So what that process is, if you probably highly interested, so I'll spend a little time on it, is that they had kind of a general thing where they said, we'll look at these, because they really don't have the same data. So they're not doing exactly what an SPF, which would take you off it, because they didn't test everybody. They had low participation throughout the state. They always wouldn't even look at anything but 95%, and average was like 80% for the state last year for participating. And then when you start getting the numbers down to participation, to 80%, well, who participated and who didn't participate? Did a student of free and reduced lunch participate, or student that was on online school all year participate? And so they have to also decide the demographics of who participated. And so they kind of looked through that, and then they gave us a sheet and said, since we don't really have data, especially for elementary, because they go on growth scores and those kids are already gone, right? So because we don't have scores from 2 years ago, so we only have one set of test scores. English language arts for 5th graders is the only growth scores we have for them, because everybody else is gone or they didn't take the tests because they only took English language arts in 3rd and 5th grade and math in 4th grade and all that kind of stuff. So there was a lot of moving parts there, but they gave us a sheet to fill out of our own things. So we looked at dibbles and we looked at maps and we looked at our own assessments. We looked at our access tests, which looks at our growth in students learning a second language. We have all that stuff, we put it in their system and it looked very good, it looked green, right? And so we sent that to them this morning. And then we had a meeting with the leader and she said, you know, it looks like you guys do have a chance for this. And so she was going to take it back to her team. And one of the things that, you know, is hard is that we have the same sort of thing. We had fairly good participation, 80 to 85%, depending on which grade, but not on all those different tests. And again, then we have to look at the demographics, who took the test and who didn't take the test. And in each grade level, it's different. And so they're looking at that with their testing experts and seeing if we qualify. If they qualify, then they moved us up to the top of the list to relook at our school improvement plan, to look at this data. And if they do that, they'll try to schedule as soon as possible a visit here and talk to our teachers and look at our kids and look at our programming. And then, you know, they may still say, we don't have enough information to do this because the information is not the same. But at least we're getting that consideration. They told us today we were one of the 7 schools out of 160 that they're looking at to do this with. So, you know, they would try to have it done before December. But since it's a whole new process with a whole new system and there's so many variables, I don't know what that's going to be. But all I can say is as of this morning, we're one of the 7 schools in the running for it. So.
Thank you. If you have a moment, a couple other questions I had when you were going through. You mentioned restorative practices, tier 2 and tier 3 implementation. What specifically is that? Of course, it's a higher tier than tier 1, but what does that look like in the day of a student?
Right. So a tier 1, you know, prevention is really what we're looking at that point. Is tier 1 is basically hopefully our teachers, when they see a reaction, they're not sending the kid out or getting mad at the kid or yelling at them. We're using restorative language. How does that make you feel? Do you know that you're bothering other students? Could you come talk to me? So it's just day-to-day classroom, how we treat each other and speak. Level 2 is when that escalates, or it escalates into a conflict with 2 kids. So we actually have to bring them in and go through a process where they talk about their feelings and so on. So that would be sort of level 2, and that kind of goes in different levels. Level 3 is more of something where maybe you had a fight, or maybe at a criminal act and we bring in all the parents, or we have chronic absenteeism. And so we look more of tier 3 would be restorative, not only of this particular situation, but you know, what other factors may be causing this? Because maybe the reaction is being caused by, you know, not having enough food at home. That's maybe why they're absent, or, you know, something like that. So that's more tier 3. So it's just a level of concern, and a level of support, and a level of depth of where we go into to have the conversation with the student.
Okay. I do know, if I remember right, the restorative practices started with a grant.
Yes.
I would, and I've not seen any, I would love to see data from the implementation of restorative practices. How's it working? What's it look like? What's good? What are some lessons learned that you would do differently?
Okay.
And that
Awesome.
may be a little bit more than what we need today, but that would be very interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, what is the impact of it, and, where we are there. And, I know they are keeping pretty good track on that. Again, I'm not sure how good we tracked any of that kind of stuff last year, and didn't have, of course, a lot of those meetings because we are remote so
Right.
much in and out. But we could have data from a few years ago, and if not, let's at least start getting data now, right? And get some good baseline and follow up from there. So I will definitely look at some ways that they were measuring it, because I know they did for the grant, and it'd be
Yes.
interesting where we are now versus when we were with the grant. So
Absolutely. Thank
yeah,
you.
thank you.
And just one more quick question with
Sure.
the social emotional learning.
Uh-huh.
You mentioned CASEL standards. I'm not familiar with that. What are those?
It's just it's CASEL, and I can't think of right now what it stands for, but it's just sort of a national and state framework. It's a framework of different areas where you try to give support in that. It's adopted pretty well by the state. If you just look up CASEL, you can get that, or I can send it to you, Blake, and how we're using that and what we're doing.
Oh, that'd be great. I would love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I'll send you that. And again, it's a framework, so you kind of have to, you can do it with a lot of different curriculum. It's not a curriculum itself, it's just a framework for curriculums.
But, and like you said, it sounds like that's kind of one piece of how you're developing this
Right.
for the school district.
Yeah, and then we're trying to say, how does global outcomes get in there? What do we do here to make try to meet those? But it gives us a framework of saying, oh, we're not missing certain areas, right?
Yes.
And we can choose to do that. So
Great.
we were long ways down that road a couple of years ago, and just ready to implement it when COVID hit. And I'll say that we do have to recalibrate some of those things. But again, that would be great conversations to have.
Thank you. And thank you, Glenn.
Yeah, thanks, Glenn.
Glenn already got in there? All right. Okay. Yeah, this is great. This is exactly what I was hoping this would be, and getting some information and getting back to you guys and looking at what's important to you and how it impacts and all those things is what an accountability committee is about. So I appreciate that. I think I mentioned most of these before of how we're trying to do those. This is more for the board, but we are trying to, of course, help our teachers get better. And we, one thing that when I came to Estes, I was concerned because we hadn't used professional development money for 2 or 3 years. And so I really tried to develop professional development. Then I found that because of our, where we lived and our sub situation, all that stuff, it was really hard for us to travel and get outside professional development. And so I really started to intentionally develop that we would be great at professional development ourselves. We worked with Eagle Rock. We brought in with our professional development team. We initially started with PLC work. And then from there, we tried to really develop our own staff, implemented instructional coaches, trained them up as hard as we can, still are training them. We brought in Ruby, who's 100% intentional on doing our new teachers induction and mentor programs. We are one of the few districts in the state that is certified both by the state and federal government to meet the cultural diversity training program, and we can certify our teachers here to get recertified in 6 years as a requirement by the state if they take 3 of our classes. And so we've done a lot of work to make our own professional development. We still allow people to go out, but we've really created our own system and our own program to meet the needs of our teachers. And then that allows us to diversify where people are in the program. And that's been a big goal of ours. And I feel like that has been one of our strengths. But when you do those things, of course, then you want to implement things and do things. And sometimes that is a process as well, and implementation dips and things. But I'm happy with what we've done there. And that's what we've done with culture responsive teaching. Our Eld teachers definitely have worked to bring that work into our classroom every day, and not having a separate plan and taught somewhere else, giving the support that we need, using the correct instructional strategies for the students that we have, and making sure our teachers and new teachers are trained in all those areas. Global outcomes, continue a process. I'm not near as far as I should be and want to be in this area. And it's a huge goal for us this year, and we're hoping that we can do some outreach and do some good work with this. So this is probably something I'm very proud that we did, and very proud that we have great awareness of it, and great proud of what we're doing individually in classrooms and what our teachers are talking about and our students know. But to have an intentional program and be evaluating it, we're not there yet. And I know we need to do that. So learning communities, I think we've done a really good job of our teachers looking at student work. Took us a while, but now we look at our ELD plans, our READ plans, we analyze it, we look at our Bridges data, we look at our MAPS data, and we make instructional decisions and adjustments and interventions based on the work that we're doing. And that continues to be always hard work, and there's never enough time, but it has been very strong for us as well. And then we talked about restorative practice as well. And we continue to look for opportunities there. I'm happy to say that we did receive the grant from the county again this year to help pay for our social worker that's able to work with families and connect them with resources and do the things there that we need to do. So we just received that last week, and we'll continue to look at ways to provide support for our families and our students. And I talked about gifted as well. Again, usually you kind of have targets for every year, but we kind of put this a little longer because again, we're kind of, I won't say in survival mode, because we did some very good things and actually had some growth, but we also, of course, made sure that we're meeting the needs of our students and our staff every day to survive through last year's pandemic and fires and in and out of school and quarantines and everything else. So we have some goals here. Again, those goals were based on that we were going to have the same test every year. We haven't had the test since. So I'm anxious to see if we meet those in 2022, if they bring back the tests as we originally saw. I'm not all about the test, but I think it'll be very, very interesting to see, even with the pandemic and stuff, our growth. And so I didn't change these. I'm trying to keep them the same, and just to see where we are and see what our new baseline is. And I'm hoping that we'll be I won't be surprised, but pleasantly happy with what our results are. So again, we have this scores based on basically 2019 data, and then I've expanded to 22 to see where we're at with those. I see what I didn't do. Probably be better if I hit slideshow so you could actually see it, right? Okay, so these are my goals. I'll just be open and honest with you and send them right out there. And they, of course, align very similar to the goals that you saw there, because I want this to happen. And so I definitely want to keep working on our achievement and growth gaps and our culturally linguistically diverse students, and develop strategies and support and instructional strategies and curriculum that support that. And so that's a huge importance to me. I want to increase academic rigor in all areas. Again, I think there's a lot of ways and triangular data and benchmarks and everything to measure what students are learning, but I think it's important that we take the whole child and look at it and see many different measures and growth areas, and not just one-time testing, but that could be a part of it. And just make sure that we are meeting our students where they're at and moving them to where they could possibly be. And then, of course, as I mentioned before, putting global outcomes, really identifying what is problem solving, how do we measure problem solving, what does problem solving look like in 2nd grade versus 12th grade, how do we make sure kids are moving on that continuum of problem solving at higher levels. All of those are huge goals for us, and I hope that we can get to it. As staffing still becomes a problem with me being a high school principal now at the same time as a superintendent, but I know there's a major improvement strategies by our instructional coaching team, and Ruby's really leading that to really work on trying to develop some of those measures and some of those outcomes that we want. And then again, working on the SEL piece of it and making sure that our students have the support they need, their food and clothes and in a mental place that they can learn and are supported when they do run into obstacles, and giving the support to our staff and our counseling teams to do what they need to do. And then, of course, still working on the gifted, and then communication and community relations. I had some really fun ideas about this, and I kind of wiped them out because in June, when I was working on this and part of July, I didn't think that we would be wearing masks and not be in school and not being with adults. I had a lot of interactive stuff. So I'm kind of revisiting that to make sure that doing this, but still, like I say, trying to increase DAAC communication, trying to work on a lot of other things too. So I'm hoping still that I just have to recalibrate that, and we can still do it. We can do it in different ways, but definitely needs to be important to us. And like Judy said, get out the great things that we're doing and get feedback on the things that we're not doing well. So that's sort of me right now. So. Any other questions or concerns?
I've got one quick question. Sheldon, can you give us an update status on the recruitment and hiring of a new high school principal?
I can give you a minute-to-minute update because I just got out of a meeting when I came here. So this is news to you that we're going to probably release tomorrow or the next day. What I end up doing is since it happened so late, the day before school started or a couple days before school started, that Jeremy had to leave for personal reasons. He felt bad about that. I felt bad about that, but it was important that he did what he needed to do for his life. But that I needed to get in there and also there was a lot of changes going on. We had all new counselors and kids coming back to school and so on. So I felt like I needed to stabilize it. It went really well. I have to say the teachers were great. The students were great. I truly enjoyed it, but I found out that I couldn't quite get enough of that done and this done up here as well. And some real priorities that I wanted to get done down there. What I did today is that I put Kevin Miles and Mary Barron as co-principals today. And I'm going to support them still. And I'm going to be down there every day and work with them. But they can work with the students and get the kids and do the troubleshooting and all that kind of stuff. I'll still monitor the school and help them and support them. And then we will make a decision in January or so to try to get a new principal. With coming off COVID and where people are, I just didn't think that opening it up to bring somebody in was just viable. I did look at some retired people and so on, and they were not interested. There's not a lot of interest in administration right now for a lot of different reasons. And so I wanted to make sure that we just didn't fill it and with somebody and didn't know our school and didn't know what was going on. And so to get stable, get everybody going, get the kids in class, get them started, and then we'll start looking at that process. So right now we're going to have co-principals down there with my support, and then we will just make that decision real early, probably January or February, what our next steps are.
So it sounds like really there's no plan to have anyone external
not this year,
until next year.
Till next year, right?
Okay.
We just felt like it was too much change and another person, and so yes, we
Gotcha.
decided to stay stable instead of that. So,
Thank you.
any other questions, concerns?
Been a challenging year, but we're hanging in there. Oh, one question I did have, will the state accept our MAPS testing? Will they accept some of that? For
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of talks about, what they're doing there and, like adding new ELD teachers, adding, working with our instructional coach and what they're targeting for and doing a very intense summer school and all that kind of stuff. This is the elementaries, which has been our major priority. Really going with the, working our curriculums, our bridges and collaborative classroom in the elementary. They're showing some good progress. We're not sure because we haven't taken the state test since we really started them as full implementation, but we're feeling like they're good. The state, yeah, will take all data we can give them. So we are taking DIBELS, we're taking MAPS, we're giving them access tests. I don't know, Ruby has a whole bunch of them and we plug them all in. The problem with that is that being in and out of schools, we don't always have them consistent, right? Sometimes when we're taking MAPS, we were quarantined, or our LA students didn't take them because we couldn't do them online. Sometimes they did. So I don't know how they'll react to that, but yes, that is what we're turning in. We're turning in the state tests. So it's third grade took the language arts tests. The fourth grade took the math test, and fifth grade took the language arts test. None of the schools took both. None of the classes took both. So we have that data. But since we also do, and that's achievement data. Since we did not have tests the last 2 years, really, or last year before that, we have no growth data except for the fifth grade and language arts, because in the third grade, they did take language arts tests. In the fifth grade, they were able to take them. So we only have one set of growth scores. That's sort of what we're looking at, but we are also looking at not just, we're not looking at it just for third, fourth, and fifth grade. We're doing DIBELS in second grade, first grade. Any data that we have, we can give that to them. Of course, any data that is nationally normed, like DIBELS or MAPS or NWA, whatever you want to call it, is better information as far as the state is concerned. Again, then we also have to look at who took the test, what demographics took the test. And so because we wasn't 95%, so that means that some students did not take the test. Was it a certain group of students who did not take the test, which would change the test scores? And then you're comparing that with every other school in the state that different kids took the test, or in the nation. And so it's complicated, but that's what we're using.
Sheldon, let me make a comment if I may. Judy made a comment earlier about being able to, I made a comment to Ruby not long ago. I think, it'd be nice to have a marketing manager or communications officer. I think Judy's right on target. There are a lot of things that are happening in the school district that people in the community and parents not only don't know, but most recently are being given incorrect information. I would love specifically this information about what the school district is doing to be reconsidered for priority improvement status, to put that on the front page of the newspaper. That needs to be communicated to everybody. And thank you for sharing it here, because it's not been shared anywhere else accurately.
And I say literally this morning, Friday and this morning is when we did that. So we're hoping that we can do it, and it's hard to communicate, but it needs to be communicated. I'm hoping that we can use their template they gave us that shows, well, we met them and the answers were yes. And so, yeah, I agree with you, and the board's brought that up, and I agree, and we're really going to try to do a more marketing effort on all those things and get some stuff out here. We definitely have things we need to improve, but there's also some pretty exciting things happening as well, and some good results from those. So I appreciate that, Blake, and thank you.
Thank you.
The other thing,
Go ahead, Judy.
Sheldon, the other thing that would be good to get out to the newspapers quickly would be even just a list of some of the fantastic projects the kids have done in the last 4 years. I know COVID interfered with a lot.
Yeah, but we were able to do a lot too. I mean, that's probably what I'm most proud of our 3 schools and their administrators is they kept running, they kept teaching no matter what came across, and our teachers kept teaching, the kids kept learning. So we didn't make excuses. So yeah, I agree. And well, definitely we are working on some stuff like that. And I know that this school improvement plan for the elementary is going to be, we're going to break it down and share over the next 5 or 6 weeks some very important parts of it. And so I appreciate that. And I'm real excited. I'll be honest with you. I was working 70, 80 hours a week, but I really had fun in high school. I hate to leave it. And got to see what they're doing. It's got to see some of the programs in BAM and the project-based learning and just every day in their own classrooms. And there is some stuff that I didn't even know. And so we need to share that out.
You would be amazed at the number of people in town who do not know BAM exists.
Among other things. So what I was wondering, Sheldon, is you know how, well, like Judy has a weekly column in the newspapers. And I was wondering, you know, can the school district do that and maybe have some of the youth in action kids kind of be responsible for putting together some of that, or some other kids that might be involved. They would obviously be with, you know, with staff approval, but they would be the reporters and they would find out the things that are going on. So I don't know, I was just thinking about maybe doing something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
And they could
agree, and
they
we
could
can
interview-
get information in the paper. We're kind of negotiating that right now, that we'll get a spot every week and so on. So we plan on coming up with some of those things. So last year was hard, I'll admit. We were basically surviving. I don't know if I could have wrote another article, but we can now, and it's time to do it. So
quickly.
So Sheldon, would it help if so with the annual report that I wrote last spring, would that be something that we might consider seeing if we can get published?
Yeah, we could look at that and
I mean, it really summed up all the good things that were going on, but also some of the challenges.
Yeah, no, I think anything, anything we can get out there. And we're also working on a newsletter to publish newsletter to send home to quarterly in the mail, because we also realize that maybe not everyone reads the paper or is on Facebook, or we felt like we're communicating really pretty well, especially last year with maybe our parents, but unfortunately it's mostly on COVID data. But we definitely need to get a greater audience and a wider audience. That is definitely something that we've identified. So.
Cool.
So I just wanted to share a little bit of the major things of the elementary. Theirs is to really implement cloud to classroom and bridges with fidelity and make sure they're trained up on that. We are seeing some good results. That is tracked every month, or every 2 weeks, excuse me, in their PLC groups. Of course, working in the global outcomes and really working in literacy, math, science, and social studies, SEL. We will be working on adopting science for this year. We have the new standards for science, and so we have a team started on adopting science K through 12 this year. Continue working on our instructional leadership and culturally responsive teaching, and reaching out to our community and our families, and using our cultural liaisons to have those communications, and making sure that we have the support and monitor our students. And then, of course, working as a team to do it all. We know that all of us together can do a better job than everybody going on their own. So, and using those PLCs to look at instruction, look where kids are, meet them where they're at, especially after a pandemic, and go with that. We also, I'm very proud to say that, you know, and we're trying to get something out on this, is we expanded the preschool. We found out that, you know, many kids maybe didn't get the experiences they did with their friends over the last year or so. And so we started a whole new preschool and have that going as well. We're looking at trying to increase some of that area as well in the future. So I'm very proud that we are able to do that. It's a lot more complicated than you think, because we had to change the room a little bit and some minor construction, and there was no way to do construction this summer. We surprised us because everybody was so busy, we couldn't get anyone to do it, but we finally got that running, and I'm happy that we are able to expand the preschool. We still have a few staffing challenges with our special populations, and we're diligently working on that right now. So, anything else you guys would like to?
Question, how many of our teachers, do you know how many of our teachers are bilingual with Spanish? Maybe Glenn knows.
We have made a huge increase on that. I asked that question myself a while back, because I know this person is this person is this person, but I do not have the number on the top of my head. But it's becoming more and more. I mean, we'd still like to have more teachers of color as leaders and a more diverse staff, but we do have many of our staff now that are bilingual, and that helps as well. So.
Good. Good. Okay. So basically you covered the global outcomes update, is that right? Pretty much?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I put that in there because,
Yeah. It was kind of embedded in it.
Yeah.
So kind of in that.
I know that's another place, though. I think that's where our community, we really need a lot of feedback on that, and really understand, you know, what our students really need to know to be successful and in all walks of life, from their mental health to their whole child to problem solving, communication, all those different things. So, you know, it's sort of interesting, as my daughter graduated from CSU in biomedical and chemical engineer, and she's been interviewing all summer, and she has a job. So she finally became successful. But, you know, the questions they were asking were those sort of questions. They wasn't looking at her transcripts and her grades, and, you know, her classes are important. But as far as the interview is concerned, it was definitely based on you know, what was your senior project, and how did you go with that, and what was the process, and who did you work with, right? Those sort of things were the questions in all of our interviews. And how do you problem solve? How do you communicate? How do you work on as a group? When you've had a problem with a group, how do you work it out? I mean, all the questions in our interviews were those sort of questions, behavioral type questions, as we see. And I think it's important that we follow that. So.
Well, I definitely think that these last couple of years, especially when COVID hit, that all of the staff at the district have definitely modeled global outcomes with problem solving and coming up with creative solutions for things.
Right.
So, you know, hats off to you for that. Okay. Anything else that anybody needs to bring up? Okay. Is there, that's our agenda. Is there, and I'm not sure, Judy, when is junior election?
The non-school entities are already voting. It's at the Learning Place. The library has a ballot box, and there's one at the Recreation Center. And then I think the middle school is voting on November 2nd, and they have really good coverage when they vote. And then the high school, the latest I heard is that the 9th and 10th grade may vote on the 1st, the 11th and 12th grade will vote on the 2nd. We pick up all the schools let me know the results from the electronic ballots. And we pick up all the ballot boxes at 7 p.m. on election night.
Mhm.
Bring them back here and count, and I hope I have your help. Bye.
Bye. Okay, thanks. I know that's coming up before our next meeting, so I wanted to just kind of see what was happening with that. Okay, is there a motion from someone?
Writing an email.
Okay, is there a motion for, if there's nothing else? Is
I
there
have
a
one more
motion-
thing, Beth. I'm
Oh, one
sorry.
more thing. Go ahead, Blake.
Thank you. Sarah mentioned in the chat, if it's possible for us to have the slide decks, and I'd like to also add a copy of the meeting today. I know you're recording, so. Could you
I'm not
email that
recording.
to us,
Sheldon
or-
is. Yeah. Sheldon,
I'll give
can
you all
you-
the links to the slide decks today, and you can look through them, and yeah, love to have your input.
Are the thank you, Sheldon. Are the DAAC meetings posted on YouTube? I know the school board meetings are, and
You know, we could do that. I mean, before, I mean, it was kind of us sitting around with 4 of us chatting, but now that we're doing them, I think it would be a great idea. So yeah, let's do it.
thank you, Heather. Thank you, Sheldon.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, and always the notes are on, on the website. So
Yes,
yeah, so all of that, all of the documents are on the website. So,
perfect.
Let's do it. I think that's another good resource. So thank you for bringing it up.
Thank you all.
yeah. Okay, anything else from anybody?
A motion to adjourn the meeting.
Okay, is there a second? Someone? Okay,
Second.
Judy. Okay, all in favor, please put your hands up. Okay, I have to do 2 things here. Do it again, put your hands up again if you're okay with that. Okay, we're good. Okay, well, thank you, you guys. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for so many of you being a part of this. This is really good, some good discussion, so appreciate that. Okay, next meeting is, and we'll get notes out to you and other information out to you. And our next meeting is coming up in November. We meet usually the second Tuesday of the month. So be aware of that. But you've already gotten invitations to those. So thank you. And all of you have a very good evening.
One thing I will do, Bev, is I
One
will
thing.
try to take your questions that you asked today and make sure I embed them. Like, so when we talk about restore practices here, we get your questions answered. We talk about, some of the other questions you have, we make sure we have that. And when we talk about our grading, that we have other schools and examples and stuff. So I think I got those notes. I'll review them here and do that. Also, next in November, I think we have the elementary is going to give a very in-depth review of their school improvement plan and what they've done and what they plan on doing. And hopefully by then we'll have where we are on the reconsideration. So that'll be good. I also am going to need your impact on the ESSER funds. I still have a significant amount of money that we can use in the next 3 years to help our school. And I want you guys to have the input on what's our priorities for that, blending with our priorities and work on that. So that's another presentation that I want to throw in there as we show you our priorities and our concerns. How should we connect that with ESSER funds, which is the money that the federal government can give us to, we don't like to call loss of learning because we're not saying we lost learning, but to improve our learning strategies. So, yeah.
And everyone be aware that even though we have a general agenda map for the year, that can change. So be aware that what happens, we have a rough idea right now what we're putting where, but that can change. So, okay.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Please make sure if you haven't voted, please vote. And we need you to vote. So, okay. All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Beth.
Thank you.